Hello, everybody. Man, I got a guy on my channel. He got a shirt and tie on. He came together for strong inspirations. Let me tell you something. He got dressed for you, my friends. He put it on for you so that y'all can focus on what he got to say. And I know it's mind blowing. I don't know how I found this brother, but I'm excited. I'm telling you, I've been thinking about it for a while today, saying, oh my God, this guy coming on my channel, and then he wear a shirt and tie for us. You know, I'm Anthony Brogdon. I apologize for not wearing my shirt and tie. I really do, because I wear them every now and then, but you know, hey, I'm a little more casual than my man, so I'm gonna let him do most of the talking. With that in mind. You know what I want you to do, my brothers and my sisters? I'm feeling you. My numbers is up. I think I counted 30 new subscribers last night. That's the biggest one-day total so far. Something is going down. And I got some surprises for you, and I'm going to announce them soon. All right? But let me tell you what I'd really like for you to do, and this don't cost you nothing, is subscribe to the channel. I want you to hit the like button on this video, because my man is ready and he gonna tell you something that I know you don't know. I want you to hit that notifications bell. Boom, ding, ding, dong, ding, dong. Hey, there's a new video up, and I'm doing 5-6 videos a week, and I put them up every so often, and when it hit me, I'm ready to share something with you. And it can be in the middle of the night, because sometimes I can't sleep thinking about you, my brothers and my sisters. And then I want you to tell somebody about strong inspirations. Hey, how about this? You ain't got to shout it loud, just whisper. Just whisper, hey, man, you heard of strong inspirations? It's going down. Black history at its finest. Do that for me. The other thing I really love for you to do, as you might know, I'm serious about my game. I put 3 years of my life in this documentary. I'm a filmmaker. I produced it, wrote the script, I hired the people, and I made it happen. And then after that, I self-distributed, where I went to over 40 cities across this country. I've been to a bunch of towns. I drove, I flew, whatever I had to do so that people could hear this information about slaves going to college, what them racists did to destroy Black business districts, and not just Tulsa. There's others. Many others, and I list Black millionaires in the 1800s. You didn't know that. You thought Madam C.J. Walker was the only one. Nope. Matter of fact, how about this? She worked for a Black lady. All right? It's in my movie, and it's streaming on Amazon, and then I got such a good response, I wrote the book on it. Now, let me tell you something. Don't tell nobody I told you this, but I ain't no big reader. You know, them big, thick books, I don't really read them. I like small books where I can get right to it. Then I can analyze it myself. I wrote this book with that in mind. It's not that thick. You see what I'm saying? But what I do is I go straight to the point. I give you all these facts. It's over 200 facts. Covered just like the movie, but it's more thorough and more comprehensive. This book gonna be something one day, for sure. And if you get, how about this? I'm so confident in the book that if you read it and you don't learn nothing new, I give you money back. No questions asked. You just send me a message. Hey man, I ain't learned nothing. I knew all that stuff. Hey man, I got your address. I'll send your money back. Keep the book and then give it to somebody who don't know all you know. How about that? And every 10th book I sell, I donate one to a school. So when them schools open back up in September, I got 40 books to donate. One to, different schools across the country. You buy a book and tell me you want me to donate a book to your school. I do it in your honor. It means that much to me for people to hear this information. It's called Black Business Book. I ain't gonna tell you the price, because when you see it, you're gonna be like, man, I gotta get 5 of them. I got that kind of money. And I autograph it for you. Lastly, my man is sitting there smiling. He say, man, come on, man, I got to get it on. I'm getting hot in this shirt. I say, hold on one more minute, my brother, because I got to tell you, I use that word strong a lot, right? Strong stands for strength, tenacity, resilience, and a sense of oneness, nobility, and grace. I came up with that on my own, and I use strong for everything I do. And so that's my intro to my guest. He's a strong brother. Watch out. You will see in a second. Come on, my man. Introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Let's get it on.
Thank you, Mr. Brogdon. My name is John Swain. I'm the CEO for the International Civil Rights Center and Museum here in Greensboro, North Carolina. I grew up in Virginia near Smith Mountain Lake area, went off to college in Tennessee, and came back home to earn a CPA license. And all I've ever wanted to do is just run a business. So as they say, be careful what you ask for. It may come knocking. In 2014, the board of directors for the International Civil Rights Center and Museum asked me to take over the leadership of this fine institution in Greensboro, and almost the rest is just history.
Okay, let me stop you right there. I don't mean no disrespect, my man, because you're the CEO, but I got to ask you a couple questions. How you get to be like you are, man? How you get to be so loving history and that kind of thing?
Well, actually, my background is mostly finance and administration. And I've always been interested in this type of work, but coming to work for the Civil Rights Museum in 2009, I started learning even more about African-American history that I had no clue of.
Okay.
Walking into this very landmark building where the A&T Force sat down 61 years ago this past February, the earth shook under my feet as I walked into this institution and saw the exhibits that were laid out here. And it became a labor of love. I grew up in Virginia, and from the time that I was in the first grade up until the 7th grade, when I would look around my classrooms, on a good year, we had 2 Black students in the classroom out of 25, 30.
Oh, really?
Yes. And so I did not start learning a lot of this history until I came to work in 2009.
Okay, let me ask you this then. Well,
yes.
I'm not going to get as dramatic as some derogatory name, but did you have to fight because you was a Black kid with all them white kids? Or was there some racial issues that you had to face?
The only time I faced the racial issues is when I earned my 4-year degree. And I became a CPA and had to go to work for a corporation. Going through school, it was a piece of cake, honestly. It was a breeze. Competition was good, I loved it. And started learning about accounting and business in the 10th grade. And so I was always very competitive. And I think that's what drives me today. Is growing up in an environment where you had to really compete, and if you wanted to stand out, and my parents would always say, you got to be twice as good.
Yeah.
So,
it's funny people say that though, and we're gonna get to the story about the museum. But I'll be honest, man. I got 2 kids. I told them you ain't got to be twice as good. That's too much pressure. Was that pressure on you to think that way? Because everybody get 24 hours. I just told them to do your very best.
No, in my family of 7 children, and I was number 2, my parents would always push us to be the best that we could be.
Yeah.
And it wasn't pressure. The pressure was in my household.
Right.
Coming home with a grade that was not satisfactory to my mother.
I got you.
That was the pressure.
I got you.
When you went to school, all you had to do was sit and concentrate and make the best grade that you could make.
But is you said Virginia. What town in Virginia?
Franklin County, near Smith Mountain Lake.
Now, is that near what? I never heard of it.
Roanoke, Virginia.
Okay. Were there plantations there? Have you ever heard of?
You know, there were lots and lots and lots of plantations. And as a matter of fact, my family had a farm right beside of the Booker T. Washington birthplace.
Oh, really?
And I'm almost afraid to do genealogy inspections. Back in those days, they didn't have fast cars. They had horse and buggies.
Yeah.
So I'm terrified about what I might find.
Yeah, but now you say Booker T. Washington birthplace was right there?
Yeah, right across the creek from us was Booker T. Washington birthplace.
And so did you ever go over there to play and that kind of thing?
As a
Is
matter of
it a
fact,
monument? What is it there now?
it is a national monument now. And my mother went to school. My mother and father went to school on that site. They had a
It's a
school.
school.
There was a school there for African American children until after 1954 Brown v. Board, and schools had to start integrating.
Oh man, that's an interesting story. So your parents didn't. I mean, I understand. Great parents, they might have known Booker T. Then maybe.
I'm sure that we have family that knew that family extensively. Yes.
Oh man, that's a good story. So and he's I mean, Booker T is the consummate promoter of black business
Yes, he was.
of his day. And then I'm gonna put my plug in. I think that I put him and then Earl Graves, what Earl Graves did during our time frame. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For
definitely.
promoting black business.
Definitely.
Were there black businesses in your town? Was it
There
a black
were.
community and that kind of thing?
The community was mostly white, but I had relatives who had owned their own businesses, and still to this day, the Harper's Plumbing Company that was in operations when I was a very young kid back in the 1960s. So it is still in operations today, and there were other roofing companies that were owned by African American people. So there's always been a sense of ownership.
Yes.
There were lots of farmers in the community, and many of the folks in those communities own lots of land. So,
So you grew up on a farm.
I grew up on a farm.
Did y'all farm? What did y'all farm? Or did y'all have animals and stuff?
We had horses, we had pigs, we had vegetable gardens that would stretch way beyond the magnificent mile in Chicago.
Okay.
But we grew up on a real farm. Yes.
How close was your neighbors?
Not too far.
Okay, so it wasn't like you way out by yourself type
Next
thing.
neighbor might be a quarter of a mile away, or about a quarter of a mile away.
And you had to do the farming thing growing up. I'm sure you had to come home and tend to the animals and that kind of thing.
Yes,
Man,
and that's really hard work. That is extra hard work. But I'll never forget my dad looking at me one day, and he worked for Norfolk and Southern Railroad, but he would always leave plenty of work for us to do. And most of the kids that lived in my neighborhood, they were single family kids, 1 or 2 kids, but in our household, my mom and dad really loved each other too much. 7 children. The kids would hang out at our house, and we would encourage them to come and help us work in the garden. And we made games out of it just to get our work done much faster. So I said to my dad, I never want to be a farmer. And he said, son, he said, you'll never make a farmer. And I'll never forget looking at him and said, I don't want to be a farmer, Daddy.
Yeah. One more question. As a farmer, how does you make money? You farm it and go sell it at the market? I know, but yeah, how does that process?
Yes, absolutely. You raise cows, pigs, you slaughter them, you process the meat, and you sell it. And there's lots of money from it.
Really? You ever did that? You never slaughtered anything yourself, have you?
I have never slaughtered anything.
Oh, I got you.
As a matter of fact, when I was a little kid, I cursed my granddaddy out when I was probably about 4 years old for killing one of our pigs. It was like
it was your favorite pig type thing.
It was my favorite pig. My oldest brother, Charles.
Wow.
Granddaddy came and slaughtered Sally and Sue. Oh. And I had choice words for my granddaddy, and
he said it's time to eat him. I think it's ready to go.
I couldn't understand why he was laughing so hard.
Really?
It was a serious matter to me.
Yeah, and so this leads into you've gotten out of that, moved to the big city. Greensboro is the big city.
Yes.
Population of Greensboro is about what?
245,000, 265.
Okay. And then the museum that you're at was founded when and by who?
The museum was founded in 1992 by Earl F. Jones and Melvin Skip Alston. They were city leaders and state leaders here in the area. And the building that we're in was the home of the F.W. Woolworth sit-ins from 1960, when four college students from North Carolina A&T came to the whites-only lunch counter and requested service and were refused until the store would close. But this building was slated for being demolished back around 1992, 93 time period. And they decided that they would step forward and save the property and turn it into a international civil rights center and museum.
It's funny when we do that, because, I always say at the end of the day, God wins.
Oh, yeah.
And so you treat us bad, we're going to win. It might take a minute. This is a win for y'all to own the building that they discriminated against you all.
Well, there is more that we've learned about this site that the building sits on. We had a project back in 2015 called Slave Deeds, where people were going to the courthouses and looking at wills to see who owned slaves, how many slaves did they own, how many were freed when they died, and all that type of thing. And we found that the very site that this building sits on used to be a slave village.
Whoa!
I was totally blown away by that. Totally blown away.
A slave village.
Yes, there were slave cabins on this very site back in the 1800s, and so that was just a freak accident that we stumbled upon it, because I had never heard about it before. But the group that was working on the project uncovered it.
Now, does that mean that it was a plantation and that's where the slaves lived on that property, or
they lived?
What does that mean, though?
They had slave cabins here where the slaves lived, and slave people lived.
And so somebody's plantation wasn't far.
That is correct. That is correct.
And then Woodworth took over and built this building that you all are in now. Woolworths
constructed this property in 1929 to turn it into a 5 and dime store. And at the time, they put a lunch counter in the back for white residents only. And it wasn't until 1960 that the A&T 4, North Carolina A&T State University, the students from there planned with the students from Bennett College to come over and assert their 14th Amendment rights as equal citizens in society.
Now, let me ask you this: what was Woodworth, and from what you know, was Woodworth known to be a very racist company?
We have heard from them that those policies were local. In some places in the North, Woolworth served Black and white residents at their lunch counters. But down in the South, that's what the Jim Crow regime was all about.
Yeah.
It was about keeping Black people in their places, in their quote unquote places in society.
Right.
Therefore, Black folks went through separate doors. They ate in separate locations. In this town, we have a bus depot where there's a big marble sign over the top of the door that says colored entrance. The colored waiting room was totally separate from that of the white passengers that rode the trains.
Now, you said we have, that sign is gone now though, right? Or it's still there?
It is my understanding that they have plastered over those words. It was not a remove and replace. The entrance is still there, repurposed, but that's the way. The building is still there today.
So you know now, because you're there, what the layout of Woolworths was, where the men's clothing section was, women's clothing, and where this counter was. All that's pretty much intact, I guess.
The counter is still here. As a matter of fact, after the desegregation of the lunch counter in 1960, July 25th, it took from February 1 of 1960 to July 25th of 1960 for the counter to be desegregated. There was a colored section of the counter where African American people would walk up to, place their orders, and take their food out on the streets. None of the other components are here. We turned it into a museum, and we just preserved the location of the lunch counter with 53 lunch counter seats. It's in an L shape. It's in the back of the building.
I got you.
And we have made a donation of an 8-foot section of the counter and 4 lunch counter seats to Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. We've made an equivalent donation to the Greensboro History Museum before the museum actually opened. And we've also donated 2 lunch counter seats to the African American Museum of History at Smithsonian in Washington, D.C.
Let me ask you this, and a lot of times you hear this question when people say, man, integration hurt Black business. Can you phantom, why was it such a fight to sit at Woolworth's counter? Y'all don't want my money, your food ain't that good anyway, so on and so forth. Why we fighting for that? What do you think that mindset was?
I had to pick Reverend Jesse Jackson's wife up at the airport a couple of years ago. And as we were driving from the airport, she said to me, Jacqueline Jackson, she said, Mr. Swain, our work was not about desegregating and integrating. It was a fight and a struggle for equality. And basically, to understand that, you have to back up to 1868, when the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution was ratified. It was ratified by 28 of 37 states. And in the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, it guarantees full and equal protection under the laws for all persons who are born or naturalized. Well, African American people by 1960, they were understanding, we want to build our own businesses. We want an equal opportunity. The 14th Amendment promises this to us, but the reason that we lost Tulsa was because Black businesses in Tulsa were so successful. I think Black folks were fine in the 1800s going about their lives, and as they became more prosperous, they wanted to go to a Ritz or whatever there was. They wanted to go to a fine hotel. They wanted to ride in the front of the bus without being asked to sit at the back of the bus. They wanted full and equal protections under the laws and to be treated as equals in society. Yes, Black businesses were great. Integration did have an impact on those Black businesses because all of a sudden, Black folks were feeling like, oh, I can eat over here at a better place, quote unquote, better place.
Right.
I want to go where the white people go and eat a meal. Well, they should have had those options available to them. But that did not mean that we needed to abandon African-American led businesses.
I got you. Now in Greensboro, there were probably, if you know of any names, maybe you can answer this. Was there a Black-owned clothing store at the time, a Black-owned restaurant at the time that people had an option to?
Yes. There were all of those types of businesses. And in towns where there weren't, often it was Jewish business people who would create a clothing store that catered to the Black trade.
Right.
But yes, down in East Greensboro, they had all kinds of Black businesses down there.
Is there a name to that district?
It's called East Greensboro.
East Greensboro.
East Greensboro.
Okay.
It's just off of the campus of North Carolina A&T State University.
So now these students one day, and I interviewed a guy, and he told me about, about a dentist.
Yes, Dr. George Simpkins.
Yeah, he told me about a dentist and all that he did, and I'll be putting his video up shortly. But those students, why did the students do it compared to like some adults? I mean, what do you think that were the adults like more saying, okay, we can just live with this, and the students came up with this aggressive attitude? Why do you think it came down to them?
Most of the movements that have occurred around the country were led by young people. They were led by students. But you have to think in terms of grown men and women who worked for European Americans. They would lose their jobs if they came here to the FW Woolworths and tried to sit down at the lunch counter and desegregate it.
Okay.
They would not be able to take care of their families if they had done something like that. But their kids, on the other hand, their kids could take on these issues and ask for forgiveness if needed. Well, it was the women at Bennett College, the Bennett Bells, and Bennett used to be a high quality school and in the day. In North Carolina, there were two schools that were well known, Duke University and Bennett College. Bennett was where the Black women came to seek higher education, to become educators and whatever. But their chancellor, Dr. Willoughby Player, she did not take too kindly to her women who were proper women being treated as second-class citizens.
Oh,
so
really?
when those students were arrested, she would take their homework to the jails where those students were being held. But I think it was those women, along with the men from North Carolina A&T, who got together and decided that enough is enough. We have seen and suffered the indignities of our parents being treated and pushed around like they're just young kids.
I got
Those kids push back. And what you are seeing today with the movement for Black Lives is mostly the kids pushing back. Enough is enough.
I got you. So now, so they did this on what day did the first big gathering at Woolworth happen? Was it a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? And how did that come about to choose now is the moment?
They chose February 1, and I think they just jumped the gun. They had planned this out with the women at Bennett College. They had planned to come down here at a time that was specific. But the four guys were here in the store, and they just decided to go on over and sit down at the lunch counter. I'm not exactly sure on what day that was at the moment. But they decided to go on over and just sit down at the lunch counter and request services. They had already purchased some toiletries in the store. They presented their receipts to show that they are customers in Woolworths, and they wanted to be treated with dignity and respect.
So then what happens after that when they call the police in? How vicious does it get? Does it get some beatings and that kind of thing or whatever?
They were refused service, and you have to think in terms of this. There were many sit-ins that occurred well before the one at Woolworths. Many of them in Missouri, in Kansas, in places, Chicago, there were sit-ins that had already occurred and people lost their lives. What these guys were undertaking was very, very dangerous. And they knew that. But Greensboro is made up of a lot of Jewish people. Greensboro is made up of a lot of German Baptist people, and they know what it means to be oppressed. The German Baptists were basically people who felt like they were going to hell if they owned slaves or enslaved people. So that's always been who they were. And the Jewish people just coming out of the Second World War and what was going on in Germany with the extermination camps, they knew that they had to stand up as well. So In Greensboro was not a violent movement. It was a persistent movement. These students came every single day until April 1st, giving the town a little time to give some thought to what their demands were. So the students in North Carolina A&T, they started February 1 until March 31st, 2 months of protesting every day. And what the town really thought was they were going to wait these students out until graduation day. Once graduation hit in May, all the troublemakers, quote unquote troublemakers, would be gone home. Well, they hadn't counted on the high school students at James B. Dudley. Those students picked up the banner and they came every single day until July 25th, at which time the lunch counter was desegregated. Now, no one could have been arrested because these students had not broken any laws. They were well within their rights under the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution from 1868.
So what happened to them every day? Did they sit there every day? Did they ever get service?
Yes.
And they sat there until the place closed and said, okay, we'll be back tomorrow. How did that go down?
They came and they sat in shifts. They occupied every seat down there.
Okay.
It was nonviolent, but all they did was they stepped up, took over a seat, and they sat and requested service. And when it was time for them to go to class, somebody was standing right behind them, and they would step right in and occupy that seat. The regular residents of white citizens here, they just wouldn't stand in line for it. So it was Black students, very deep, waiting to occupy that seat. Woolworth's lost a lot of money. Woolworth's lost the equivalent of millions of dollars back during that time. And they finally made the decision that they are going to integrate that lunch counter. The black employees were the first to be served by their white counterparts.
So it goes on all these months and what have you, and the guy and the people who work at Wilbur, they standing there saying, I'm not gonna get you no water, man. You won't sit there. I'm not gonna get you this ice cream sundae or whatever.
Yes.
And so they sitting there with nothing to do, just looking at them. They never called the police in to say, hey, you trespassing or any of that kind of thing.
They did call the police. Mr. Harris, Charles Harris, he did call the police, but the police came.
Who was he?
He was the manager.
He was the
Charles
manager.
Harris was the manager of the Woolworths at the time.
Okay.
And they hadn't broken any laws that they could see.
Was it really, and Woolworth, you told me what Woolworth said as a corporation, but was it really just that one guy saying, this is the way I feel and it's not going to happen? Or
it was this manager for this store. And then if you went to another section of town, they would have had the same things. So it was actually the custom of North Carolina that Blacks and whites did not sit together and consume a meal.
Oh, so okay, as we get past that part, when he did, so one day he says, hey, I can't take it no more, we're losing too much money, whatever. All right, y'all can sit here. Does he make an announcement that, okay, this is the day, there's 5 students sitting there, all right, man, get them what they want to eat? How did that go from I'm not gonna do it to okay, it's all right, let's get started?
Sure. There were 4 Black employees that worked for Woolworths. One was Charles Best. He was a bus boy. Geneva Tinsdale. She was one of the counter assistants. Mr. Harris had them to put their street clothes on and sit on the other side of the counter, and he had his white service staff serve them.
Oh, happy day.
Oh, happy day. It was as normal as that. Just go ahead and serve them. And then Woolworths opened up the lunch counter to everyone the next day. There was so much business over the years that Woolworths had to expand the lunch counter out into the floor at 4 different spots. They added 4 new islands on. I think they would seat about 12 additional people, so 48 people.
Really?
And when we acquired the property, the sit-in movement acquired the property back in 1993. We cut those islands off to restore the lunch counter to the way that it was on the day of the sit-ins.
Yeah. Now how's the newspaper reporting this, and how nationally did this become newsworthy?
I think for the most part, the newspaper was in favor of for an end to the movement. They reported pretty fairly from all that I can discern.
Was there a mayor that was like, or a police commissioner that was, yeah, if you don't mind, I say, that was quite racist and was saying, hey, we're going to wait this out, and was behind Woodworth? Who else was behind it other than this guy, the manager?
Just about everybody in town was behind the custom and the norm. The city council could have moved more forcefully against Woolworths and Cress's and other businesses to integrate much longer, but they did not do that. It was a way of life here, and it's no different than Black women would come into a Tallheimers or other dress shops.
Okay.
And they would always have to go downstairs to shop. They weren't allowed to buy dresses off of the floor or try them off of the floor.
Yeah. And so you mentioned, I guess just then, Woodworth wasn't the only one in town like that. There were others.
It wasn't.
And so when Woodworth made their move, did that start the domino effect where other ones began to integrate too, or there were still some holdouts?
There were holdouts. The 1963 sit-down movement that was led by Reverend Jesse Jackson, just up the street from the Civil Rights Museum, was an effort to desegregate the Cress lunch counter in the basement of Cress's.
What's the story, as we kind of come closer? What's the story of that? This is something that he did as he was a student, or what was his time frame?
Jesse Jackson was a football player at North Carolina A&T, and he led the student movement for the sit-down movement in the middle of the street, blocking all traffic. And he was responsible for the desegregation of the Cress lunch counter.
And Cress was what kind of store? Was it just a restaurant, or was
Cress's was pretty much like the Woolworths.
Okay.
It was a clothing store. They had clothing and toiletries and all kinds of stuff.
Okay,
in it.
I got you. Now at your museum, I'm sure you feature that Woolworth, but there are other exhibits that you have there, I'm sure, right?
Oh yes. I think one of the most powerful teaching tools, and everybody can go online and tour this museum. You can go to our website at www.sitinmovement.org, or just type in International Civil Rights Center Museum, and you can now take a tour from home and see the entire presentation. I had my senior interpreters to go through and explain all of the spaces that we have here. I think the most powerful one is the Hall of Shame. There are images of Will Brown and his body burned in Omaha, Nebraska in 1919. There are pictures. Oh yes.
Yeah.
Will Brown was accused of raping a white woman.
Yes,
and during that time, rape was considered, a Black man would be charged of rape for just staring at a white woman too long. So his body was burned in Omaha, Nebraska in 1919. We have the 16th Street bombing that occurred in Birmingham. We also have an image of Emmett Till. Well, we talked to people about a 14-year-old child being beaten by 2 grown men, and Mamie Till's response to that. So there's lots that this museum has to offer. And I think the one place where is most impactful would be the Hall of Shame. We have a lot of 8th graders coming through this museum on an annual basis.
Sure.
By the time that they get upstairs, some of them actually pass out after we just register with them what they have seen. And often it's for the first time that they're getting a sense of the anger and the hatred in this country during the Jim Crow regime.
One more question, I guess, towards you yourself. How does this make you feel seeing that every day? Are you immune to it now, or
no?
First, yeah. What does it do for you, man?
No. And no different than the rest of my staff. Leading tours through this museum, when you get to the Hall of Shame, it tears you up. And I've been here, this is my 12th year with this museum. And I still cannot go through that space without tearing up when I look up on the wall and see an image of Emmett Till. Walking into the lunch counter space, I feel the goosebumps on my body. We had a young lady here, 82 years old, that visited the museum when we opened in 2010 to the public. And as she was coming up to that space, she let out the loudest scream. And she was in tears. She said all of those memories came flooding back to her. She remembered all of it. So it has that kind of an impact on you. I felt embarrassed for quite some time because my grandparents, my mother, father, uncles, and aunts, I never heard them talk about any of this. Never. So my work here with this museum every day is to honor the people who lost their lives during the civil rights struggle, to maintain a world-class institution that continues to teach people that we can stand firmly together and achieve a lot, or we can fall as fools being divided.
Man.
So that's what I work to do every day.
That's it right there.
That's my secret sauce.
That's it right there. Let me ask you this. Is there do y'all have a festival or something like that, you know, in the summer? It not just maybe the museum, but in Greensboro that people come to, you know, Black History Festival or something, you know? Or
we have not started that process, but there are lots of events that the city hosts on a regular basis. And as this museum continues to grow and strengthen itself and continue to be able to stand on its own, there are many plans that I have in store. And right now we're working on expanding and being able to protect all 4 corners of this museum.
I love it. Everybody, this is what I do. Man, I told you the man was going to put it on you. Where was the counter at? Is it in the Black neighborhood? Is it down, like is the museum in the Black neighborhood, in the downtown? Where is it in Greensboro?
It's in the center of downtown Greensboro. Okay. And it was on the white side of town. Oh,
really? I got you. Well, hey, everybody, this is what we do here. Come on now, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button on this video, hit the like button on this video. Share your love in that regard, make some comments, whatever. Hit the notifications bell, tell somebody about Strong Inspirations. Watch my movie, read my book. Let's go down there to that museum, everybody. Let's support that cause. Let's donate some money. All the website and all that's gonna be in the descriptions. Just Google it and you'll come up with it. And to you, my brother, I say with all sincerity, I want you to stay strong, stay safe, stay on your grind, because I love what you're doing down there. You educating them people, Black and white. You keeping that history alive and you keeping them doors open, and things are growing in that town as a result of the love that you sharing for the people and the people are sharing for you. And I swear that, and I know that's going to continue to happen. So everybody, we're going to say goodbye-bye and we'll be back. Check them out.
Thank you.
Peace. Thank you.